Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be video number 4 in a deep dive series on what I would do if I was setting up a new author business in 2025. So I made a video a little while back outlining 5 steps that I would take if I was setting up a new author career in 2025. And as I was going through that video, I just realized that really each of these things needed to be explained in more detail. And so that's what this is. This is just an attempt to explain in more detail. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into this. We're going to be talking about building a feedback loop. To get us started, let's answer the most basic question first. What is a feedback loop? And more specifically, what is a writing feedback loop? It's very, very simple. We start with you writing, okay? So you have a book. You give that book to people, and they read the book. Those people give you feedback on the book. You take that feedback and you either rewrite or you write something new, incorporating the feedback. Super simple. It's just a loop that goes around and around and around. But what's interesting is it actually only looks like a loop from this point of view, from the top down. If you were to actually be in it, what you'd find instead is that it is a spiral that progressively gets bigger. Because what's happening is when you write and people read it and give you feedback, and then you write again, incorporating that feedback, you are going to get better. And as you get better, people will give you better feedback. And as they give you better feedback, you will continually get better. And so it's what we call a virtuous cycle, right? It's a cycle that doesn't stay in the same place, wearing the same exact path over and over again. Even though it looks like you're treading the same path, you're actually not. You're actually going up. You're improving. And so that's why I say this is the rocket fuel that's going to supercharge your career. Because if you can build a feedback loop in, then you can do two different things. The first thing, and probably the most important, is that you will get better. You will be a better writer every time you go through this loop. Okay? And so you're going to continually get better and better and better and better and better. And the second thing is that you get market research. Almost forgot how to spell market research. And why is this important? Research is important because it helps us understand what the market actually wants. It helps us understand what's actually going to sell. You know, when people talk to me about how I choose my books, I often say this thing that sounds really bizarre, right? I test my books before I sell them. How would you possibly test a book before you sell it? Because obviously if somebody reads it, then they're not going to buy it, right? Well, yes, but like any product, you want to test it before you take it to market. Because if you spend a year of your life writing a book and then you take it to market and nobody wants it, well, then you've just wasted essentially a year of your life insofar as it relates to the goal of selling the book, right? Obviously, writing is not a waste ever. And so spending a year of your life writing a book, even if you don't sell it, is still a great, great thing. But how much better would it be if you could also sell the book? And that is where market research is just so incredibly important. Okay, so we've got these things. Our virtuous cycle, right? Also known as our feedback loop. And the question is, how do we do that? How do we set this up? Because again, it's one thing to just be like, you know what you need? You need feedback. You need immediate feedback in order to get better. It's another thing entirely to understand how to get that feedback. Before we talk practical, before we jump into the practical tips I have for you on how to get this set up, I want to talk about something else really quick. And I think this is probably the most important piece of this whole conversation. A feedback loop will not necessarily feel good. Okay, I want to say that again. If you set up a feedback loop, the chances of you feeling bad about your writing will increase. Why is that? Well, because you're going to have people who are giving you critique. And no matter how thick-skinned you are, I pride myself on being an exceptionally thick-skinned person. But no matter how thick-skinned you are, when someone says, that's not great, that's not great, that's not great, that's not great, that's fine, but that's not great, you're going to start finding yourself dreading hearing their feedback. Getting feedback from people requires courage. If you've ever participated in a critique group, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Even if you've never participated in a critique group, maybe the reason you haven't is because you were afraid of what people might say about your writing. And so this is not for the faint of heart. Again, it's also rocket fuel. And so if you can do it, it's going to just transform your career unbelievably. But it is hard. It is hard to do. And I want to acknowledge that up front. I want to acknowledge that doing this really requires courage in a way that sometimes it's hard to articulate. Doing this requires internal fortitude. It requires a mindset of inevitability, okay? I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the channel specifically. Maybe I have in one of my really old videos, but I've always found it helpful, especially when it comes to being an author, to operate with a mindset of inevitability. This is a mindset that says, I will succeed in this. I will triumph. I may not be the author I want to be today. I may not be the author I want to be tomorrow, or even next month, or even next year. In fact, in 5 years, when I wake up, I probably won't be the author I want to be. But I'll be closer. And I'll be getting closer every single day. In fact, when I wake up in 10 years, the level of change in me is going to be astronomical because I'm going to get better every single day between now and then. And because I'm going to get better every single day, my success is inevitable. I'm going to make it to my goal. There is literally nothing that can stand in my way because I am not going to stop trying. I'm not going to stop. And if you can hold this mindset of inevitability, that it doesn't matter what my circumstances are now because I'll get there. I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other, right? This is why we say better than zero all the time on this channel. This is why I'm constantly talking about this during our sprints. The reality is, I get on and I try to do live stream sprints, Monday through Friday, every week. And the reality is that 90% of the time, I don't want to get on. I don't want to do it. But I just show up. I just show up. I just show up. And some days I show up and I start and it doesn't work and I get off and I feel crappy about how that day went. And some days I crush it. But you know what? As long as I'm trying every day, it's a win. As long as I'm trying every day, then in 10 years, when I wake up, I'm going to be unrecognizable. Right? I'm going to have grown that much because I never stopped doing. In this case, the doing for me is writing. And if you're trying to be an author, then it's going to be writing for you too. Because we can take away all of the rest of it, right? We can take away our marketing ability. We can take away, our ability to set up Facebook groups or our ability to tell people about our books on social media. The one piece that we can really, really control, and the one piece that serves as the core of who we are as an author, is our writing. And so that's the piece we want to focus on getting better every single day. The other stuff is ultimately peripheral, and as long as we continue to focus on our writing and continue to improve it, then we're going to get there. And a feedback loop is how we do that on a consistent basis. Okay, so let me break down for you really quickly how this feedback loop differs from your traditional feedback loop. So, the reality is that most people have a feedback loop, or most authors, I should say, have a feedback loop like this, right? They write a book, and then after they've written a book, they publish it. Then after they publish it, they get reviews. And then after they get reviews, they read those and make changes. Right? This is what the normal process looks like. So how long does it take you to write a book? Let's say that it takes you 6 months to write the book. How long does it take you to publish? Well, it's probably going to take you a couple of months to publish, because if you've written the book in 6 months, you're going to need a cover, you're going to need to do all of your formatting. Maybe you want audio, synced with that. So let's say that's 4 months. Okay. These are obviously generalizations. These times shift dramatically depending on who you are and what your context is. But these are good averages, right? And then you need to get reviews. Let's say you sell pretty well, right? You're an established author. You're going to sell some books. And so you get maybe 400 or 500 reviews in the first 6 months, right? So over 6 months, you're getting 400 or 500 reviews, which is definitely enough to get a sense of how the book is being received by the public, right? You can never trust your first reviews, and even the first reviews in the first couple of months, you always are like, is this actually how people feel, or is this just my core fans who really love it, right? But at 4 to 6 months, people have had time to get the book, and so they've really you're getting an accurate picture of how the market feels about it, right? And then you make changes. You started that book a year and a half ago, which means that anything that you wrote during this stretch of time does not benefit from these changes. It doesn't benefit from the feedback that you've gotten. And so you are behind the curve now. And so that's not what we want. We cannot afford this sort of time frame, which means that one of the keys to having a good feedback loop is that it is short, that there is only a little bit of time between our writing, people reading, and our feedback. Now, optimally, we want this process to be so quick that as we are writing the book, we are getting feedback on it. But admittedly, that is hard. And again, it requires a tremendous amount of courage. How many of you would be perfectly happy to say, okay, I wrote a chapter today, I'm just going to post it, and I'm going to let everybody read it and rip it apart? Most people are not at that point. They don't have the internal fortitude to do that. But that is where we want to get, right? We want to get there, where we are having feedback so quickly that we can act on it on a 24-hour cycle, right? Much shorter than that, I don't think that there's much benefit. But if you can get down to 24 hours, let me tell you, it's fantastic. And the shorter your cycle can be, the more benefit you can get from it, the more powerful the rocket fuel actually is. So, this is a great time to segue into our incredibly practical tips on how do we actually get people to read our stuff. Well, that's the $1,000,000 question for sure. But I have some ideas, and hopefully you can implement them in your life. So the first is we're going to target our friends and family. Now, this is potentially fraught, okay? And I understand that. Not everybody has the same context when it comes to friends and family. Not everybody has the same kinds of support systems, and so we have to deal with that according to our situation. It sucks that that's the case, but even people who feel like they don't necessarily have a really strong support network or don't have people in their immediate friends and family who are going to support their writing, might be surprised. You might find that people actually are really excited to support you. People are really excited to support what you do. They just don't know that you actually do it. And so this is where we're going to start looking for people. All right, so I want to give you two different approaches. The first approach is to say, hey, I'm trying to improve my writing, and I'm trying to work on a specific thing. I'm trying to improve my characterization. And I have a couple of chapters of my story. Would you mind reading it? And would you mind telling me how well do my characters exhibit their emotions? Do you get a good sense of the emotions of my characters through this writing? And then if the person says, yeah, sure, I can do that. And most of your friends and family will be like, sure, I'll read a couple of chapters. That's fine. You say, great, here you go. And they read over it. And they will tell you, yeah, I think your characters are great, or no, I don't think they're great. And then you ask the ultimate question. What is one thing I could improve in this that you think would make it better, and more importantly, would make you want to keep reading? That's the question at this stage that you want to be asking. What would make you keep reading? And then, after they've told you, you go and you implement what they've said, and you come back and you say, hey, I took your advice. I did what you said. Would you mind reading it or reading some new chapters to see if I've implemented it correctly or if I missed the point? And then you give it to them again. And you just do this until they're exhausted. No, that's a joke. But honestly, that might happen, right? Sometimes people read things and because they love us, and then they're just like, this is not for me, and I'm not interested in this, and this is a total drag. And you want to stop before they begin avoiding you, which has happened to me. It has happened to me. But so we're going to start with our friends and family, and we're going to use this very specific tactic of just saying, hey, I have a small piece here. Can you read this? Can you tell me how to fix it, or tell me what you think might make it better? And then go and fix it and bring it back and say, hey, I did the thing. Can you look at it again? After we do this with our friends and family, we'll probably end up at the point where we have a solid piece of content. And once we have that content, it might be a novella, it might be a book, it might be a piece of a book, right? We're going to go out and we're going to look for other people. Now, strangers, who are going to be our next target, fall into two different categories. The first category is people who have never read us before. Okay, and we're going to target strangers on websites like Royal Road, on Wattpad. There are tons and tons of different forums and places where you can go and you can post your writing and you can get feedback from people. Okay, now this is generalized feedback, and not everybody is going to be the core reader that you want, but it's different from friends and family because friends and family like you, and so they're going to say nice things about you, and strangers on the internet will say the opposite, right? They'll say not nice things about you, and there are all sorts of reasons why they might do that, but more often than not, they probably have some kernel of truth in what they're saying, and so it's important to take this feedback very seriously. We don't listen to what they say about us or what their words might convey about us, but we do listen to what their words convey about our writing. So strangers are going to be our next level of finding feedback, right? I can post a chapter on Royal Road and I can get feedback within a day or so. People who are reading it and are making comments. It's going to be harder to get targeted feedback this way, but that's okay because you can get generalized feedback. And anytime somebody says, I didn't like this thing, or why'd you do this? This was stupid. You respond with, thanks for the feedback. I'd love to make this better. What's one thing that I can do to make this better? How do I make this better? Can you help me improve here? Because I'm trying to improve. What would you have done in this situation? What would you like better? You'll find more often than not that people, complete strangers, are willing to take their time to help you simply because you've asked. And then after they've done it, after they've given you that information, you go, you make the change, and you come back to that person and you say, hey, I redid this part. Does that seem better to you? Is that what you are actually talking about? Did I actually hit that? And they'll let you know, yes or no. Or they'll ignore you completely. But it doesn't matter, right? The point is that you are not only taking the feedback, but you are applying it. And then you are trying to loop around again and engage with the same person to ensure that you're on the right track. After you've done this for a while, you're probably going to have a complete book, right? And if you have a complete book, and maybe you're starting at this point already, maybe you already have books out, well, then what we're going to do is we're going to start targeting a new group of people. Our fans, people who like what we write. And this is where the magic truly happens. If you're an author and you have been publishing for a while and you do not have fans who are beta reading for you, you are missing out on a tremendous opportunity. So what I want you to do is I want you to email these people. I want you to message them. I want you to communicate with them in every single way you possibly can. And I want you to ask them, would you be interested in beta reading for me to get early content and in helping me improve my stories? Now, the mass majority of your fans are going to say, no, I'd rather just wait for the finished book to come out. And that's okay. But you'll find that there are a number of people who read your books who would love to get your content early, who really like what you write. And so they're interested in supporting you. And getting to be part of the creation of these stories is all the better. And it's with these fans that you can really set up this rapid fire feedback loop, right? Because you can take your writing and every day as you're done with your writing, you can upload it to Google Drive and you can have a document there that people can jump on and they can read through and say, yeah, I like this or I don't like this, right? You can give them criteria for how to engage with the content. You can ask questions in the margins. What do you folks think about this? You know, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm trying to accomplish this specific emotional shift right here. Did I nail it or did I whiff? And they'll not only tell you, but they'll probably talk amongst themselves, and you can learn a tremendous amount that way. But the reason that your fans become the rocket fuel generating this engine is because they're the ones who actually buy your stuff. They're the ones who can tell you whether what you're putting out is going to hit the market right or not, because they're the ones who are going to be buying it. And so rather than get stuck in this incredibly long process and feedback loop, if you can just shorten the loop by talking to your fans directly and saying, what do you like? How do I make my writing something that you like? You can accelerate your career tremendously. Now, some people are going to say, Seth, isn't this just right to market? And the answer is no. So right to market is a specific thing where an author picks a genre, identifies the tropes in that genre that are popular, and then just spits out drivel that is aligned with those tropes because they know they can make a quick buck. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about tuning your individual creativity without compromising it. We're talking about helping you learn to understand what other readers like so that you can deliver stories told in your own voice, with your own ideas, in a way that other people are excited to read. So this is not right to market. That is not what we are doing. But we are writing for our fans. This isn't about making a quick buck. This is about becoming a better writer. This is about inevitability. Now, I told you that I would give you some practical stuff. So let's talk about the actual process that I use to set this up, like the actual infrastructure of this. So, first and foremost, I have my subscription service. Okay. For my subscription service, I funnel people into Discord. Once people are in Discord, I engage with them and I talk with them. And then if I think they would be a good candidate, I send them to a private Discord channel and then give them access to a Google Drive file. That's it. That's how simple it is. Every day I upload from Scrivener and I upload to Drive. And then I tell people on the Discord, I uploaded to the Drive. And then every day people get on and they read and they comment and they make adjustments and corrections, within the scope of what I've said is acceptable. I've had people who in the past have come in and tried to, essentially rewrite my story, right? And make it what they want. And they'd be like, I don't really like this here. I think this should happen. I say, thank you. You can go and write that story. I think it would be really cool and I'd love to read it. But I'm not going to change what I'm doing because I want to write my own story. But it is okay if you want to come in and you want to say, hey, I think that this word would probably be better in this case. I think this is what you were trying to go for instead of the word you used. Or, hey, there's a continuity error here. You might want to go back and check the spelling of those nations so that you get them right the second time in the story, 25 chapters later that you mention them. So within the scope of what I've set, my beta readers have essentially free reign to make any comments they want, and then I decide on what changes actually take place, right? And it all happens through Scrivener and Google Drive, right? I edit in Scrivener, I upload to Google Drive, and then that's the master doc that will produce my final manuscript. Like, you just need access to Google Docs, and you need a place to tell people about what you're doing. So even if you didn't have the subscription service, right? Even if we just completely get rid of that, that's fine. Do you have a Discord where people gather? Maybe you don't have a Discord. Great. Do you have a Facebook group? Or if you don't have a Facebook group, what about an email list? Do you have a Twitter? Do you have Instagram? Doesn't matter, right? Maybe you don't have any of those things. Maybe you have absolutely no social media at all. Okay, so sign up for one. There's literally nothing standing in your way except actually doing the thing, right? And this is, again, why courage and this, mindset of inevitability is so important. As long as you just take the actions and do the things, you will eventually get there. It might not happen tomorrow, it might not happen next week, but it will come. And so being able to set up this feedback loop is going to help you get there all the faster. All right, I know I've covered a tremendous amount. If you have any questions about any of it, drop them in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. If they're really complicated, I may even make a whole new video on it. If you have any other questions, things you'd like to see me make a video on, definitely let me know down in the comments. I really hope that you can establish a feedback loop like this, because this, above all things, has improved my writing tremendously over the last 5 years. And it can do the same for you.